Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me all right. Thanks for joining today. I'd just like to welcome you to today's webinar on overcoming the challenges of delivering on-premise enterprise applications. Just a quick one for those of you who don't know us. Incremental Group is a digital technology company. We help organisations understand and apply useful technology to make big improvements to their business by taking small steps. We provide consultancy, applications, intelligence, cloud and enterprise services. Today's webinar has been put together really as a result of the reality that many of our customers are facing and working with us on. I'm sure you will identify with a lot of the challenges we touch upon, and I hope that you will find the ideas that we present useful. We welcome questions, so please submit any you have, and Andrew and Mark will be happy to pick these up at the end. So I'll revisit the questions when we finish the presentation. So just one last thing, I'd like to briefly introduce this afternoon's presenters. First up is Andrew Roberts. Andrew Roberts is our technology director here at Incremental Group. He's got over 25 years experience in delivering large and complex ERP and CRM implementations across multiple industries. And Mark Gray is our head of cloud and infrastructure. Mark also has decades of experience in the industry. When he's not directly delivering customer projects, he spends his time evaluating the new technologies in the market and really figuring out how they can help improve efficiency and add extra value to businesses. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Andrew.
Thanks, Jen. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to start off just with a little bit of an introduction as to really why we're talking about this topic. And although the title of this presentation is around about the challenges of delivering on-premise solutions, I'm actually going to start by talking a little bit about the cloud. And the reason I'm doing that is really because in these days, the cloud affects everything. Even if you're not actually moving your applications onto the cloud, people are seeing that, whether that's with other applications that they use in their current business, whether it's with past employers. People are using the cloud all the time, and people are getting used to that simple access anytime, any device. People using things like Office 365 or Salesforce.com, they just get used to the idea that you can get access to applications quickly and easily wherever you are. And while that's happening, a lot of enterprise applications are increasingly becoming dated. They're based on older technologies, and they're having a hard job being able to live up to that expectation that the cloud has brought there. The other thing, of course, is that business is changing at an increasing pace, and so we need the agility to meet that demand. So, for example, a company might be making an acquisition. They need to quickly get the new organization or a new site on board, and so they can't be dealing with solutions that need expensive, long lead time items like high quality comms links or high-end hardware or a lot of manual work to deploy applications. We need to be able to have a solution that lets us get those applications out there to the new users quickly. And of course, it's got to work for the users too. It's got to be easy. It's got to work at a decent rate of performance. And if we don't get these things right, then it's always going to be a battle to get users to use the system. I'm going to show my age a little bit here. I remember traveling around the country, 15, 20 years or so ago. And in those days, you'd be carrying about a modem and all sorts of weird and wonderful adapters to work in different countries and so on. And getting access to things remotely was hard work. We've come a long way from there since then, but I think there's always things that we can do to make it easier and more convenient for users to be able to get access to their applications now. And so, if the cloud is really setting the expectation for everybody there, why is it not dominant? Why is it not taking over every single application? And I guess the real reason there is it's not right for everyone, or perhaps perhaps more correctly, it's not right for every scenario. There's lots of reasons why the cloud might not be the answer in some cases. We might be dealing with sensitive data, financial data, customer data, employee data, and not everybody's comfortable with that data being kept within the cloud. We might go a step further than that, and we might be facing rules over where data can be held. So if we, for example, in our business, we deal with government contracts, or we fall under the new European GDPR directive, then we have to be very much aware of where our data is held, and we need to comply with various rules on that. We might be operating in a part of the world where the communications links are not very good. For example, if we're working in the Far East or Australia, we probably have to contend with quite high latency in the comms links, and that can present a challenge. Or we might be dealing with an application where we've got a lot of real-time, high-volume data collection. Perhaps we need to have an interface to local devices, weigh scales or shop floor terminals, that sort of thing. And again, that might not lend itself particularly well to the cloud. Interestingly, that's an area that Microsoft with Dynamics 365 are moving towards their new cloud and edge solution, which gives you kind of a small amount of on-premise connectivity for things like local devices, whereas the rest of the system is living in the cloud. But that's one specific application. That's certainly not something that's generally available for all people yet. And of course, the other question when we're looking at the cloud is it cheaper or is it more expensive? And I think it's very easy to construct a paper model that says it's one way or the other, but you can't just do that purely as a theoretical exercise. You need to look at your own circumstances. You might have a very recent investment in hardware, for example, and that can completely change what the payback time for moving to the cloud might be. So if we assume that we do have that situation where, you know, the cloud isn't the be all and end all, it works for some people in some cases, but it doesn't work all the time, then we're back to thinking, how do we deal with this challenge of getting our on-premise applications to be deployed in a way that gives a similar experience to the cloud? So let's talk about that experience first, the access and experience. And what we're trying to set ourselves as a goal here is, again, to match what the cloud is doing. So we've got this idea of being able to provide access anywhere, on any device, at any time, for any user, to any application, over any connection. And that's a hard challenge to meet. But again, as I say, the cloud has really set the standard there. We've got the agility piece that I mentioned before, excuse me, the fact that we need to bring on new sites, more users, additional applications, we need to be able to deal with upgrades. This is all stuff which the cloud is very good at, and that's a hard act to follow, but we need to do that. We need to make the access very simple. We can talk about access for dummies. You know, we don't want to be having to train users in how to set up complicated VPN connections, give them access tokens, give them a CD that they need to install some software to be able to get access. Again, the cloud set the standard there. You should just be able to walk up to any device and just use it, and it should just work. And of course, we shouldn't have to apologize for why we're giving users a different experience when they're roaming away from the office. They should get access to the same applications, the same user profile and setting, the same facilities, the same performance. We shouldn't be having to tell them that there's things they need to do differently or elements of their application that aren't available when they're remote. Performance is one of the things that I mentioned there, and obviously that is a challenge in itself. It's a simple objective. We need to provide the same performance that users would get over a local area network wherever they are in the world. And that's very easy to say, but sitting behind that are a lot of technical challenges. An obvious one is the situation, the state of the communications links, where we might have inconsistent performance there, inconsistent bandwidth or high latency. I already mentioned some of the areas in the Far East where that can be a particular challenge. We've got the fact that a lot of the on-premise applications that we might be dealing with were developed in the in the local area network era. So they're using technologies such as client-server applications, using things like ODBC or OLEDB database connections. And if you're not familiar with what those technologies actually mean, it doesn't really matter. But the key thing is these are technologies that were based on the assumption that everything was running over a local area network. And so you have a lot of traffic or chatter going backwards and forwards between the client and the server. And that works fine on a fast, low latency local area network. But as soon as you try to run that over a wide area network with lower speed or higher latency, then it just makes the whole application appear to perform very, very sluggishly. Of course, the other side of the challenge for getting performance to work well is accepting the fact that our application isn't the only thing that's using the communication links that are in place. We might also have some very bandwidth hungry applications. We might be doing some video or some voice over IP. That's going to use up a lot of bandwidth. We might be doing some printing, so we're downloading large files with graphics into print. We might be dealing with big Excel files or CAD files, that sort of thing. And all of these are examples of applications that we need to coexist with, but they're going to just increase the challenge for us because they're going to make a lot of demand and generally uneven demand. They're going to give us peaks in demand on our network, which is quite hard to deal with. We also need to think about how we're going to keep our applications supported, and a particular element of that is how we're going to keep them up to date. So if we get upgrades that we need to roll out, how do we get upgrades out to remote users? We could use various scripting tools. That's a potential solution, but they can be quite fiddly things to deal with. Again, if we look at the cloud, the thing that the cloud benefits from is the fact that the applications generally are not installed locally. They're installed on servers in the cloud, which means they're all within the control of the data center. They're quite easy to get access to. They're quite easy to get upgrades to. And so you tend to find if you're using cloud applications, you just get the latest version. There's nothing really you have to do. You're not particularly aware of the upgrades happening. They just happen. And the same logic applies to providing end user support. If we're dealing with users that are remote, we need to be able to provide a support service to them. We need to be able to see what they're doing. We need to be able to take control of their session and help them out. And again, there are individual tools like TeamViewer or Skype that we could use to do that. But again, it raises the question, is there a more integrated answer in there? Another concern we need to think about is compatibility. This is often particularly the case when we're dealing with older technologies, older applications, and they often may be tied into specific versions of operating systems, databases, and/or particular hardware, and that for a while that becomes a little bit of a pest because you need to keep slightly older infrastructure up and running to host these. But as time goes on, it gets harder and harder because you get different applications that are all tied into different versions of operating systems, different versions of databases, and they really start to clash with one another. So we need a solution to handle that. Some of you might remember that Windows XP, it used to have a thing called compatibility mode, and compatibility mode in Windows XP was basically almost a sandbox environment. It basically allowed an application to think it was running under an older operating system on older hardware and so on. So we need something like that, but something for the server element of our applications as well. And that's something that Mark will talk a little bit more about later on. The last thing I really want to talk about in this part of the presentation is about the business impact of all of this. A lot of what I've said so far has been about the experience for users and trying to give them the convenience and the performance and so on. But we're not just talking about user convenience here. There are some real business impacts of some of this stuff, from some various obvious things like, do we need to put in very high performance communications links to kind of compensate for the fact that our application doesn't run well over low speed links. That obviously has a direct financial cost, through to being an obstacle to meeting business objectives. So more and more companies are trying to implement virtual teams, shared services, trying to deal with new acquisitions and consolidation. And if we don't have a good agile solution for deploying our applications, it can kind of stand in the way of getting all of this kind of thing done. And lastly, thinking about business risk, if we've got an application that's difficult to make available remotely, and we have to use all sorts of weird and wonderful tips and tricks to do that, then it's not just a case of thinking we need to do that once in our production environment, but we need to repeat all of that hard work in our disaster recovery environment. And if anyone's thinking that, disaster recovery is optional, well, you just need to look back a couple of weeks ago to see what happened to BA when their systems went down and their disaster recovery didn't really kick in, just as an example of how significant that can be for a business. So I've really kind of, over the last 10 or 15 minutes, outlined a little bit as to what the challenges are as I see them. What I'm now going to do is hand over to Mark Gray, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the options for solutions for dealing with some of these things and some of the work that we've done with some of our other customers in the past. Mark.
Thank you, Andrew, and hello, everybody. My name is Mark Gray, and I definitely now feel old when Jen's just said that I've been in IT for decades. Just wanted to point out that it's only been 2.5 decades, although I must admit I've seen certainly a lot of changes over that time. So what I hope to do in the next few slides is to try and show you how we can continue to deliver applications that may now be considered as legacy, for want of a better word, in the sort of modern world of cloud-based applications, and that these apps are still absolutely critical to how your business functions, and for obviously the reasons that Andrew's already highlighted on his previous slides. When I was trying to put the slide deck together for the webinar today, I kind of started thinking about all the challenges that we've had over the years or decades, as it was mentioned earlier on, and sort of delivering applications to an ever-increasing sort of mobile workforce, and organizations that are really becoming more globally dispersed and really, going where the work is. And an example of that sector is the oil and gas sector, where they pretty much have to go where the oil is discovered around the world. And one area that's always come up over the years, and it's often been a restricting factor, is the underlying network. Basically how the user connect back to their IT applications. And so I thought we could start with looking at the typical challenges and solutions for the network. So we'll move on to the next slide. So pretty much the statement you see on the slide sums everything up really, and in a nutshell, you ignore the network at your own peril. I've seen many projects over the years sort of fail, if you like, because people try and put more and more things on top of the network without actually thinking about the impact of that. An example of that is, maybe you've opened a new office location, or you're quite often latterly with some of the acquisitions that have been happening, due to some of the downturn in some sectors of industry. You're expanding your business, you've bought a company, and all of a sudden you've inherited a whole bunch of network connections that really aren't going to be fit for purpose for what you need to run in terms of your IT systems. So, you know, one response I've heard many times over the years is, and maybe this will ring out with a few years, is, yeah, just let's use the internet or the same network connection we've already got because it's there. But, you know, have you run any checks to see how busy the link is before doing this, or is it just that you think, well, yeah, the connection's there and it'll work? I mean, an example I thought of myself from a personal experience when I kind of pretty much got rid of Sky about a year ago and subscribed to BTTV with fibre at the cabinet. Had a pretty good broadband experience, certainly when it first went in terms of the speed. Was all ready to go for the ultra high def TV experience, and lo and behold, BT tested my link and said, no, sorry, you can't have it. It's below the threshold for the speed that we need for ultra high def. Now, obviously, I was annoyed, but when I then thought about it and having used it for a year and been able to watch BT Sport in high def, it's been a pretty seamless and good experience, and I had no issues. So, you know, it does kind of make it clear that, you know, you should always be, you know, making checks and checking how busy network links are before you just suddenly go and decide, yeah, we'll just try and squeeze more onto the existing connection. So really what I'm trying to say there is the network underpins really the delivery of any IT application, whether it be cloud-based, as we're obviously moving into more and more a cloud-based era now, or as we're discussing here, a legacy application. So what can we do with the network? Well, as it says there, optimize it. You know, we need to make sure that the network is optimal for the services that you're going to run over it. A couple of ways we could do this. We could simply throw money at the problem, give it to BT or Vodafone and say, yeah, just give me a bigger pipe. I want 100 meg or I want a 1 gig pipe, and surely that'll be fine. We're putting a bigger drain pipe in it, and so we'll be sorted. But bigger pipes are obviously expensive, and particularly up in Scotland and some of the areas, the country up here, your fast links are not available at all locations. You're maybe struggling to get in some places a 2 meg broadband, which is, you know, going back about a decade if you live in the cities. So, you know, also what happens if the users in the far-flung area of the world, you know, companies are becoming more globally dispersed now, and we need to deliver, you know, your legacy application to them. As someone once said, you kind of change the laws of physics, and as Andrew's already mentioned, a thing called latency or round trip time of your network traffic can become quite significant, to the point where the user notices that it's been sluggish. You know, they're trying to type things into a forum or a screen that needs some kind of real-time response, and, you know, they've got a bit of a lag, and they just generally get a bad experience with the application. So how can we ensure our business critical apps perform as if they are local, and we can't do anything with the size of the pipe? You know, we can't do anything with the comms link. Well, there's a number of areas we could look at. You could use a feature called quality of service, which is a well-known network feature available in most of the routers, which, you know, obviously interconnect all the networks around the globe, private and also internet. It allows us to prioritize and guarantee the traffic. Great, fantastic, it works. If any of you out there are using voice over a wide area network, then pretty much guarantee your IT guys or your network guys will have expedited forwarding and prioritization of voice traffic happening. But you can only do so much with a given size of pipe. And they're pretty basic features. They're not really very dynamic. They tend to have to be quite statically configured. And as I said, they tend to be mainly used for voice and video, although, you know, your better implemented networks, and some of you may have them out there already, will be using it for key line of business apps, but you can only go so far. So the other option is we can look to enhance existing links by using modern software-defined wide area network appliances that use a number of different techniques, if you like, to try and improve the network. You can use caching at a site-wide level to kind of stop repetitive data from having to actually be sent across a link, so it's served up from local cache. We can compress the data to try and squeeze more out of the pipe, the size of pipe we've got, and certain types of traffic compresses quite well, including some remote protocol traffic that we'll come on to. We could use link bonding to glue together a series of links. So you could have, say, 4 or 5 broadband links, because that's all you can get at a particular location, but you can use an intelligent appliance that will actually allow you to connect them all together, and it's completely invisible, and it'll aggregate all the bandwidth and provide you with a net size of a bigger pipe. And you can do things like prioritize internet traffic to go always going down one link and line of business data down another, so it's and use them for failover. So there's some quite clever appliances out there. Or you could use a remoting technology that allows applications to run, only by sending sort of screen updates and key clicks and mouse clicks. So you're not starting up your local application installed on your PC and trying to run it over a 2 meg connection. You're somehow transporting yourself to the far end in your data center where the application is actually running. So there's many solutions out there that look at these sort of range of techniques that I've mentioned. One such solution is the Citrix NetScaler SD-WAN range, or the software-defined WAN range of physical and virtual appliances. And we've used them in a number of sort of projects over the years, and they've continued to evolve as technology has evolved. And you can actually now get to the point where you can rationalize a lot of your existing network equipment, for example, in a remote site with a device that will compress, it'll cache, it'll do a stateful packet firewall on your remote site, and it can glue multiple links together, whether it be a MPLS or a fiber connection and broadband, and it allows you to simplify your hardware. And they are, a particularly good range of technology. There are other vendors out there as well, and I'll discuss, later how Citrix have got a good solution for being integrated between the different technologies. So the key message here, really, to try and sum up is, don't underestimate the importance of the network when accessing your legacy app, and you're only going to end up with user poor experience. And don't panic, because there are solutions out there for you. So a couple of options we've got in terms of trying to overcome the solution. So this one is pretty much one option where you could deploy a cloud-based solution. Literally, you could rip out what you've got and deploy a cloud-based solution, and it's basically like a Christmas present. You've always wanted, solved all your problems, you're cloud-based. The couple of issues there, browser-based applications are often, written to handle lower bandwidth, if you like, but they don't eliminate the reliance on the network altogether. You still need something there to connect to. You can only go so far with the network due to budget constraints, so you might need a better network to deploy the cloud-based application, but you don't have the budget to go and do that, and there might be some issues in some less populated areas. So the big thing, though, is that in terms of a cloud-based solution, it's unlikely that the network issues discussed just in the last slide are going to be a big enough business driver for you to swap your entire application out at the drop of a hat, because it's going to be costly. It might not give the same functionality. It might not integrate with other systems you've got on premise that you can't upgrade, some equipment or hardware or wave scales or whatever you've got, and obviously there'd be a large retraining exercise for staff. Other options that you could do is you could look at developing a front-end application. This is an example maybe of a mobile phone app or an iPad app or some kind of Surface Pro. You've rewritten a front end that has got often cut down functionality to get access to applications. You might write some kind of web-based forum front end. An example of that's a local authority that we've worked with. We provide iPads to the social workers to go out into the houses during their visits, and it provides them with a sort of basic questionnaire forum for accessing a sort of legacy-based social care application back at work. It's not an ideal solution. It's a point-of-pain solution. It means you've got a different application for each system, potentially a different mobile app. It's not going to offer the same functionality as your main application, and adds another level of complexity for IT to deal with. So what is the answer? You basically you need to virtualize the application. So what do I mean by that? So the picture there is of a rather nice looking cake, if you like. So we're trying to do an analogy of what you've got. You really need to try and separate the application away from the underlying device that users use. And we don't care if it's a PC, a laptop, a tablet, an Android tablet, an iPad tablet. We really just need to try and make it invisible to what it's actually running on. So if you think of the cake, the bottom layer is the underlying IT technology and systems that the application needs to, in order to run. So it could be Windows Server 2008, maybe Windows 7, maybe Vista. Should I have thought you might need a particular technology to run that on. The top layer is the end user device, so that's what you're trying to run the old application on. So it could be Windows 10, could be an iPad, etc. The middle fill-in layer is the good part, if you like. It's the technology that allows you to deliver these applications to the end users. So, what kind of technology we've got for the middle layer? Taking into account everything we've discussed, the network and the challenges that it poses, and the ability to support potentially many different devices, including non-Microsoft operating system devices, then we can pretty much narrow down the solution to one that provides all of that. So Citrix Zen Desktop's the market leader in delivering Windows and Linux apps across any device. Some of you may be using it, some of you may have heard of it. Its key is to be able to deliver to any device, any location, at any time. And the device is key here because it's not just Microsoft devices, it can be Linux, iPads, Android devices. So in a nutshell, Citrix works by taking the app and sending only screen updates, keyboard clicks, mouse clicks, back and forward between the servers and the end user, using a very, very efficient protocol they've developed over the last 20 years that now in the latest releases adapts to the underlying network conditions, so it's intelligent. So it knows if you've got a really fast, high quality link, it knows if you're on a hotel Wi-Fi, it knows if you're on a mobile phone with 3G or 4G connectivity. The Citrix NetScaler SD-WAN appliances that I mentioned in the last slide, they kind of understand exactly how the Citrix protocol works. So if you've got Citrix in your network, then great. If you don't and you've got other non-Citrix traffic like Exchange or SQL Server or just file browsing, Skype for business, or Link if you're using an older version, Office 365, they can understand all those applications. So if you've got Citrix and you also add in the Citrix NetScaler SD-WAN appliances, the whole thing acts as one big holistic solution that basically allows you to deliver a really, really high quality solution to the end user, i.e. in this case, your legacy application. The technology, you want to obviously make it easy for users, so it allows you to push the icon direct to the user start menu. They don't really care, they just see the icon for their legacy app. They don't need to worry about establishing a VPN connection to get you back to the Office network first, which you may have had to do in the past. All you need is an internet connection, and applications are delivered securely over SSL to the end user. Helps IT administrators because one of the features available in the technology is that we can maintain a single image of the server or the bottom layer of the cake, if you like, where we've got the right version of Office installed, we've got the right operating system, whether it be a Windows 7 or Windows XP or whatever the application needs to run. You can encapsulate that in a single image, and you can just maintain that image, and you can scale out and rapidly deploy server images to support the application. And if you have an issue with them, you simply reboot them and they're redeployed from the same central image. So IT get a lot of benefit from the technology. And users can obviously access the application from a tablet or a PC. It doesn't matter as long as they have the Citrix receiver client, which is the client that they deliver the apps over, and that's available from the Google Store and from the Apple Store, etc. Then it doesn't matter. The user can get basically on with their day-to-day job and not worry about the technology, if you like. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand back to Andrew, who's going to sort of wrap up everything we've kind of spoken about and give you a little bit of a glance to the future. So, Andrew, it's over to you.
Thanks, Mark. I think there's some good examples there of some of the ways we've been able to help some of our customers with these kind of challenges in the past. And I'd really like to wrap up this session by presenting a little bit of a vision of the future. And here's my vision for the future. So it might not look all that futuristic, but the serious part of this is that actually we all know the cloud is happening today. We all know that there's going to be more and more move towards the cloud, more applications, more users. It's all going to be going in one direction. There's no doubt about that. But even if 100% of all new line of business applications that were put in starting tomorrow were all done in the cloud, we'd still have on-premise solutions in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time. There was a recent study that the US federal government did on some of their systems, some of the systems used by various federal agencies, and they found quite a lot of systems there that were 40 or 50 years old. So line of business applications where the business functionality works, they don't get replaced quickly, and we are going to have to deal with this challenge for a good number of years ahead. So until such time as all of these things completely go over to the cloud, we need good solutions for these challenges. And I think some of the solutions that we've presented today, Mark has mentioned some of the Citrix solutions because they are the market leaders, but there are other solutions there as well that we've worked with, and we think that they are what are needed for companies that are not able to move all of their applications over to the cloud yet. So I think at that point I'm going to hand back to Jen, and we'll see if there's been any questions that have come in during the session.
Thank you. Sorry, I was still on mute. Thanks very much, Andrew and Mark. I'll just go to the questions that have come in during the presentation. First up, are you ready for the GDPR? And where do you host your clients' data?
Okay, I think I'll pick that one up. I mean, certainly GDPR is something that we are hearing an awful lot about at the moment. It's something that we are very closely following, and we're getting a lot of questions and a lot of interest from customers who are starting to think about that now. In terms of the question about location of data, I'm going to answer that in two ways, actually. First of all, if I think about the enterprise side of our business, where we are primarily dealing with Dynamics 365, the various products within that product suite, and that is more often than not a cloud-based deployment. It can be an on-premise deployment as well, but more often than not it's a cloud-based deployment. And so the answer there is that comes down to the location of the various Microsoft data centers. So today, for Dynamics 365 for operations, that is in Ireland or the Netherlands, and it will fairly soon be available within the UK itself as well. The second half of the answer there is if we're talking about on-premise applications rather than cloud applications, and in that case it's wherever your data center is. So that may be in-house in one of your buildings, or that may be in a data center as a private cloud, in which case that can be wherever you want to put it. You know, there are various companies out there that are providing private cloud hosting, and you can pretty much get that in any city or any country you want. So there shouldn't be a problem with being able to put that somewhere that gives you what you need in terms of compliance. Okay, any other questions, Jen?
Yeah, this one's perhaps best answered by Mark. Mark, one for you. Why Citrix over remote desktop services?
if I had £1 for every time I've been asked that question over the years, I'd be a millionaire by now. So I'll probably start off by saying that remote desktop services over the years. I mean, the first time I deployed that and installed that was on Windows NT4, believe it or not. So that's about 20 years ago now. And then with Windows 2000, they really started to up their game with the level of functions and features that you get in it, right up to the latest versions in Windows Server 2016. So they've literally improved things, but they only take it so far. So a couple of things to answer that question. I mean, it's really any device, including non-Microsoft. So Microsoft are obviously, with remote desktop services, concentrating on deploying to Windows devices. You get some third-party remote desktop clients that get released in like the Apple iStore and that. Microsoft have now got a version as well, but they only want to deploy across a whole multitude of different devices with the same client as really Citrix, as opposed to using RDP. The big one with it is, and this is where their secret sauce is, if you like, is in their protocol. The underlying protocol, which is kind of how it delivers traffic and data across the network, is really lean and mean. And I'm going back when Andrew mentioned the word modem there in his presentation. I remember when I first started dealing with Citrix 17, 18 years ago now, and it was the only way that you could deliver a Windows application at that time over a 14.4K modem, believe it or not. The protocol was optimized for about 10 or 12K at that particular time. But now it's obviously moved on. It now supports high definition 3D graphics, high def sound. It's now adaptable, so it knows if you're on a lossy link or a contended network. So, everybody uses Wi-Fi. What most folk maybe don't realize is there's a very contended network. Depending on the number of people sharing it, you're all sharing the same bandwidth. So obviously the protocol runs far better, which translates into giving the end user, a better experience. Other things, I mentioned server image management in there to do with centralized image management. Got a lot of detailed monitoring available for the whole system, the whole Citrix components, if you like. Right down, and I think this is key, right down to the individual user experience. So there's a help desk tool in there that allows a user phones up and says, my application is a bit sluggish today, and help desk can go in there and see immediately a lot of stats about the user, what kind of latency they're experiencing, what type of link it is, everything that a help desk guy would need to know, but often would be thinking, oh, well, I think it might be the network, and who did I go and speak to try and find out about that? There's obviously the networking integration. I spoke about that in a bit of detail in the slides with the NetScaler range of appliances, and obviously Citrix, as you'd expect, they know the protocol, they know how it works inside. Nobody else really knows how things work inside, so they can obviously optimize the Citrix traffic far better with their appliances. So when you knit the two of them together, it provides a really good holistic solution for the end user. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. That's us at 45 minutes now, so I'm proposing that that's us out of time. And if you have any additional questions or would like to discuss any of this further, please just get in touch with us and we'll be more than happy to continue the discussion. Best to do that just dropping a note to info@incrementalgroup.co.uk. So thank you everyone for your time, and we'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.